oh, I'm dyslexic, that means I'm stupid. I was comparing myself to you a lot and thinking I was inadequate and not enough.
Lizzy very much wanted to be a performer from a young age, and I never really felt drawn to it in the same way. But our voices sounded very good together, and that there was something about the sibling harmony. I think that understanding how Lizzy's brain works has got more and more apparent the more songs we write together. There's so many places that really need and value that dyslexic brain.
We've had such a great response to the podcast, and so many of you have been in touch asking what you can do to help. It's really simple. Just follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That way we can reach more people, and that way we can celebrate these great minds that think differently. At just 22, Ward Thomas made history as the first UK country act to top the charts. Twin sisters Lizzy and Catherine have cemented themselves as pioneers in the British country scene, bringing a fresh perspective to the genre. Now at 30, they're looking back on their career, sharing how neurodivergence has shaped their identities, music, and creativity. Let's get into it. Let's see how great minds think differently. Catherine, Lizzy, I thought I'd start with asking you about each other's brains.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Lizzy, can you give me 3 words about Catherine's brain?
I would say busy, scatty, as well as fast.
I feel like they all describe the same thing, but I'll
Okay,
have
busy, very, like selfless.
Okay.
Because you think about other people. Thoughtful, that is thoughtful. God,
Do you
hard.
like being put on the spot?
No.
No. Or is it, could you tell?
Yeah.
It was like at school in class, and like a teacher says, right, Lizzy, you answer that question.
Sends you straight back there.
Straight, yes, sends you
Really?
straight back there.
I'm really sorry. That was then really cruel of me to do that.
Cruel. You picked
I'm really
me to do that
cruel.
first.
Yeah.
Do her next time.
You most engaged with the question, though.
Yeah, you really did think about it.
Yeah, that's the problem, I think.
Catherine was happy to just sit there and wait.
Yeah.
So that's a
You've
pretty
got-
good segue then
Yeah.
into Catherine, 3 words for
Okay,
Lizzy's
3
brain.
words. I would say warm, sensitive, and chaotic.
That makes sense. Yeah, I wish I could have just come up with 3 words that quickly.
Well-
You're quite complicated.
But I'd say that...
Complicated is a word
Okay.
for you as well.
So I think how many words is that now?
5.
Yeah, no, I think you are a contradiction in your brain in the sense of like you're very organised, but you're very chaotic.
At the same time.
It's just great hearing you talk amongst yourselves. We haven't obviously had twins on the show before. And
Oh, yeah.
so, yeah, watching you interact is pretty interesting. And so, Lizzy, you were diagnosed dyslexic at 9.
Yes, I was.
Tell me about how that happened.
Well, I always struggled academically at school, especially with the maths and science and retaining information and stuff like that, and going home, doing my homework and focusing, and a lot of the things that fall under the dyslexic title. My mum got me tested because she thought the school was going to hold me down a year, and our parents as twins really didn't want that because it made me feel inferior. So I got diagnosed at 9. It both had I think a negative effect, but also a positive effect, because it made me understand that there was a reason behind why I struggled with academics at school, but also I was insecure with it because I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic, that means I'm stupid.
Mm.
And having a twin sister who we've always been incredibly close,
Mm-hmm.
and I always compared myself to
Well, you have a direct comparison. It's not like you're younger than your older sibling and that's like, oh, you're younger, when you're like exactly the same age and you're going through all the same classes, all the same exams, all the same, you get the same results on the same day.
Yes.
And every time people will be like, oh, what did you get then? And what did you get? Oh, and you just, even I think the dialogue around it, you can't help but, I think our parents did it,
Yeah.
where they would be like, don't worry, Lizzy, at least you're not, and then try and find something to put the other one down to try and bolster the other one up.
Yeah.
And I think that it's quite it's a constant reminder of, of the comparison. Which
Did anyone tell you about all the amazing positives that can come from being dyslexic?
That's one thing I wanted to talk about today, because I never understood dyslexia until more recently. Like, a few people have explained it to me in a way more simplistic way, like about how you retain information and how you see things in a very different, like the big picture, and in a very different way. And I think that's definitely helped with writing songs and creative writing in lots of ways. Like, I write a lot of poetry and I'll see one object and create a whole thing around it. But no one taught that as a kid at school. Teachers didn't understand it.
No.
Dyslexia. And so they kind of treated you a little bit like you're you're behind everyone else. Or so they made you feel a bit more stupid.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Brigstock said, we ultimately, our children are getting diagnosed with being dyslexic and we're putting a mountain in front of them.
Yeah.
Straight away. It's no surprise 85% of kids now, today, who are diagnosed dyslexic are ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Because it's immediately it's a negative.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
Totally.
because you're like made to fit into a box that just doesn't work. Like, I think that understanding how Lizzy's brain works has got more and more apparent the more songs we write together, because we'll be sat writing and Lizzy's brain has gone down a rabbit hole that no one else has even thought about, where we might have come up with a line and she'll be like, yeah, because that means this and this and this and this and this. And I'll be like, okay, I mean, it didn't mean that to me at all. But if that's where you can take that line, then it gives it so much more depth. And hopefully lots of people will hear it that way as well, people with similar minds to you. And I think that really helps with co-writing, because you want a song to be relatable to as many people as possible. So you want to come to a songwriting perspective with multiple perspectives. I mean, I could go down so many different ways of how Lizzy's brain has gone.
I mean,
I've had to sort of double take and go, what? How did you get there? And it's like, we went for a walk in France a few years ago and we were walking past a field of poppies and Lizzy came up with a poem about the war. And I just saw a field of poppies.
it wasn't Flanders Field poem,
Sure.
obviously.
Sure. So who comes up with all the metaphors that are so apparent in all of your lyrics?
Probably you.
No, it's a mixture of both. It's
I
mixture.
try and sort of
It depends.
rein it in a bit, maybe.
Okay, Castles in the Clouds.
That's you.
Castle in the Clouds, yes. But we also write with a girl called Rebecca, and she's got a similar kind of imagination to me in that way as well. I think she's diagnosed ADHD, and I think we all, it's different every time. I think it depends on the topic we're talking about as well. You're very good at coming up with the concepts and subjects of you come up with the idea, the initial foundation idea, and then we all kind of make it about so many different things.
And then who provides the structure?
I probably would try and structure it back again. Yeah. And I think that's what
you
helps.
rein it in.
Yeah, very much so. And I think sometimes there has been times where I'm like, okay, no one's going to have thought about that lyric in that much detail, Lizzy. I think we need to
rein it back.
No one's going to hear that and go, oh yeah, that brings me to that part. I mean, and actually when you say Castles in the Clouds, that's a song called Almost Easy. And it's all about losing the what could have been from a relationship, which I think everyone has experienced, is like having the normal, attainable things that could have happened and then the dream-like things that could have happened. The Castles in the Clouds was a dream. The dress that I never wore was an attainable thing. So it's trying to sort of put those two things, marry them together in a song, which is quite fun because there's very few other places that you can have that outlet.
Yes. And so, Catherine, what was your, what were your observations of Lizzy being at school and being diagnosed?
I think it's really difficult because we had like math sets, the bottom, the middle, the top tier sets. And we went to a sixth form that was incredibly creative and really progressive in a lot of ways, but it still has exam results and they had league boards and they sort of tried to steer you into a situation where you would then make them look good in their league boards instead of give you the chance to do something that you loved and that was good, that you were good at. And with the maths, with Lizzy and maths, it was, but luckily Lizzy's got a wicked sense of humour, so we could mock it at the same time as it.
It is funny.
It was funny because there was a moment where Lizzy had failed her GCSE maths
Third time, second time.
twice. And we were on holiday and she called up to get her exam results. And we were with someone who was a year below us who was getting his GCSE results, and he was A's, A stars, like really smug. And then Lizzie called up and goes, "Hello, I'm just calling up to find out what I got in my maths." And she misheard the lady on the phone. And the lady said, she said, I was sat next to Lizzie, and Lizzie went, a C? And then she went, "Oh, an E." And I like... my heart broke for you, but at the same time I couldn't help but find it so funny because it was brutal that you like thought you'd got a C and then for the second time in a row.
I thought I got a B. I thought she said
a
B, which was even more impressive in my head. I was like, I got a B for maths.
And then you were like, oh,
never.
An E. I think it was really hard being a twin that didn't struggle in that sense, because you don't want to be smug. You don't want to look like you know what you're talking about, because you recognize that she's struggling, but you also can't play yourself down.
That's tricky.
And it's really hard because you don't want to look like you're sort of, and I wasn't great at maths. I was very much sort of
what
average.
Did you get?
I think I got a B.
You did get a B.
But I was very average when it came to like a lot of academics, which I think, luckily I wasn't like A star student, because I think that would have been even more difficult. But it is difficult because you don't want to play yourself down. And you don't want to not celebrate your wins as a way of pushing your twin down. You want them to have their own wins. I think it's more just that you're very conscious of the fact that if both of you had your things, and you, like, for instance, I've seen lots of twins that have their things. One of them is really creative and really good at theatre, and they focus all on that, and then they put everything into that, and the other one's really academic. Then nothing sort of counterbalances. It's sort of...
They're very different. Lots of twins are, they set themselves out to be very different.
Yeah, and you have a goal and you sort of get on that path very young and you stick to it. Whereas we very much kind of crossed over on loads of things. And Lizzie actually wanted to be in music before I did. And then me joining felt almost like I was an imposter in your
path. That, to me, never felt that. I was so excited that we were going to do that together. But again, we've done everything together. This is because the twin thing, we went into a music career together. We lived together we only moved out when we were 25 years old. And the longest from each other. And the longest time, like when we were in our early 20s, that we actually were apart was when I was in Zambia for 6 weeks. Yeah. And I was like, that's crazy. So our lives were very together to the point where we had to separate to get closer again.
But it had to be like a conscious separation. It wasn't like a natural one. We had to be like, right, time for you to go there and me to go here, and you to figure out who you are without me and me to figure out who I am without you, because we couldn't stay away from each other in school. We would ask to be in the same classes. We would ask because we were such a sort of security blanket for each other, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm sure is very common with twins, right? That there's that. I mean, literally, you are together.
Yeah, you come out of the womb together.
Exactly, like you are together.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is you're clearly both different.
Yeah.
And yet you share this huge career, passion overlap and talent overlap that joins you.
Yeah, and I think anyone that spends more than 10 minutes with us realises how different we are as personalities in every sense of the word, but the synergy works very much professionally. We've managed
we complement each other.
Yeah.
Our personalities complement each other. It went through, like, in childhood, lots of kind of insecurities of comparing, more my part, not on your part. I was comparing myself to you a lot and thinking I was inadequate and not enough. That was always an insecurity from a child. I do think that stems a lot from the dyslexic and the suffering. It was always like my brain. I was always so insecure about my intellect.
But I think
it wasn't anything else. It was the intellect thing.
But I think that it's interesting because the diagnosis of dyslexia had some conflicting feelings around it for you, I remember, because our cousin was like, oh, I think I need to go and get my daughter diagnosed because I think she's dyslexic. And I remember Lizzie being like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be a good or a bad thing for her, because in one way it's an answer, it's a label, it makes me feel like I belong to something, but in another way it sets me apart from my sister, and it makes me feel different, and it makes me feel not enough. And so I think the jury's still out whether...
But again, the answer, the label, and the answers, like all the things you said, can also be taken as a negative.
If they're not attached to all the positives that come with it.
Exactly. And it's like, it's how the kid, because especially when you get diagnosed so young, when you're 9, you don't you don't have the intellect really to understand that you don't, to understand the nuance behind that.
I kind of get annoyed when I hear your experience of being diagnosed dyslexic at 9 and ultimately then putting a mountain in front of you and people not telling you, did you know that dyslexics actually have written some of the most amazing books? Agatha Christie, make incredible, actors, like Whoopi Goldberg, businessmen, creatives, inventors, Steve Jobs, the list goes on. And to tell you and share with people who are being diagnosed that, yes, there are challenges, and yes, you may find these things difficult, but oh my word, you're a big picture thinker. You'll be brilliant at spotting patterns. You can go and join MI5 and MI6 because these are the kind of skills that they look for. You could be an amazing lyricist, musician, etc. And we don't give both sides.
It's all negative. I know I was very young as a 9-year-old, but again, the mountain in front of you, that is so true. They basically daunt you as a kid, being like, you're going to struggle here, you're going to struggle there, and you're going to struggle, in exam situations, all this kind of stuff. They do not talk about the possibilities that you could explore. And I did actually have one incredible teacher, English teacher called Mr. Hoyes, and he gave me so much confidence. And I came in and wrote these short stories for him and all this kind of stuff. And he read a few of my stories up to the whole class, and he gave me confidence. And there was only 1 or 2 of those teachers in my whole upbringing that gave me that kind of booster.
It just made me remember when we were in religious studies and we had to write about Easter, and you wrote about the Easter bunny, and then the teacher
made a story up about the Easter bunny,
and then the teacher made you read it to everyone.
Basically, I meant to write about Jesus, obviously, but I wrote about the bunny.
But no, it just made me suddenly think,
You
oh my
wrote Alice
goodness,
in Wonderland.
that's so that was in a shameful way. That's those sort of things shape you, and I think
they read it up. I was embarrassed because I got the assignment wrong.
But I think it's funny from listening to it now, school is so rigid and life is not. And I think that when you are dyslexic and you're made to fit into a rigid system, you are not told that when you leave that rigid system, you have a very nuanced, open world to embody. And I think that's very different.
School does not prepare you for the real world.
Yeah. Well, the real world is just not reflective of that. And like you said, there's so many places that really need and value that dyslexic brain.
Yeah, I think the amount of sort of emphasis we place on writing, spelling, reading, grades being basically your whole self-worth and self-esteem couldn't be further from the real world. And therefore, I know there's all these young people who are leaving school with maybe not great grades or challenges, and therefore going, because I haven't got these grades, therefore I am not X, Y, and Z and able to kind of succeed. And it's just it's so backward.
Yeah.
It's so interesting talking about, my husband's also dyslexic, and we're wanting to have kids in the future. And we're often, because we're both dyslexic, both left-handed, both very creative minds, but in a very different way. We've had conversations about this, but like you said before, if someone in that dyslexic test, if that person said, Agatha Christie, she was dyslexic. There's some incredible creative writers. I've always loved writing stories. I've always wanted, but I've never had the confidence to write.
You should write a book.
I've always wanted to write a book.
Should write a book.
I did a thing called the Hoffman process. I made a promise to myself at the end of it saying, one day I'm going to write a book.
Okay.
And I do want to achieve it that one day. Might take years, never know.
Just make the decision.
But at the end, I never thought you could. I could have had an entirely different career path. You just don't know. With all these kids that don't have the confidence because of these dyslexic tests, they could do so much. It's that simple.
It is that simple of just tell the truth.
Yeah,
That's
just
it.
tell
Yeah,
the
give
truth.
them the whole picture.
Yep, give them the whole picture. They're big picture thinkers, so give them the whole
Yeah,
picture.
Yeah, true. If someone said that to me, I would immediately feel a lot more confident in my intellect, thinking I could do this, because I was always a dreamer. I was always a storyteller as a kid. I was always writing in diaries and all that kind of stuff in my little fairyland. And I could have used that to my advantage rather than like repress it, kind of thing.
Where did music come in this?
So I
Always
think
loved
Lizzie's
singing.
always had a voice, and you much more so than me, have loved to be performing. So, and you were never shy. Like, our family is very much, our parents were in a band. We always had parties. We always had people around. And Lizzie would be the performer. She would very happily stand on stage and have everyone laugh. And you love to make people laugh.
I became a clown a lot of the time.
So you could deflect.
Yeah, and it was like I enjoyed making people. This is what when I was listening to your episode with Marcus, I was really related to when he was like, I love it when he makes people laugh, like, and he's like taking the mick out of himself a lot of the times, but he enjoyed the feeling of making people laugh, and I do too. I completely relate to that for sure.
And it's funny because you're definitely much more comfortable on stage performing, and I notice even you sort of experience the gig differently to me, because we'll talk about the show
Definitely.
after, and I will be analysing in real time, thinking, oh, we should have changed that, or why did we say that?
And I'm like,
and
Catherine, save this until tomorrow morning. We'll talk about this
she'll
tomorrow
come
morning.
off stage and be like, that was really fun. I'm like, did we have the same show? I said this. Why did you say that? And it's really interesting how differently we've experienced the same gig.
Yes.
And I do think that it's because our brains obviously think
But
very
also,
differently.
I'll say a comment, and then you'll look at me, and I think you're just looking at me, and then I think you're like judging the comment.
Sometimes
that
I
I've just
am.
said.
Sometimes I'm like, why did you just say that?
And I'm like, and then I'll be obsessing over that one comment the whole show, and I will not be able to relax for the whole show, and then I'll forget lyrics.
The
songs.
lyrics are a big
And it's the first thing that goes. I'm like, and it always happens with the songs that we've sung millions of times.
We'll
and
be in
I'm
the
like,
middle of cartwheels and you'll look at me going, how does this song start?
Freeze.
and also I've had moments where I've started, I look down on the piano, and my brain, everything freezes, and I play a chord.
You literally can't remember.
And it's out there, and everyone can hear it. It's so obvious. I've just completely forgotten.
So you loved performing,
Yeah, definitely, I'd say.
and then Catherine, what?
Well, we started out because Lizzie was always the soprano in the school choir, and then I was always the alto.
Okay.
So I found comfort in being the harmony to Lizzie's lead. And Lizzie very much wanted to be a performer from a young age, and I never really felt drawn to it in the same way. But we discovered at a young age that our voices sounded very good together, and that there was something about the sibling harmony. So it started, I'd say, like that, and then it slowly became where our voices, someone described us as the French horn and the trumpet, because they go well together. They have completely different qualities, but they blend. So as we started writing and creating our own artist brand, we discovered our own individual voices. We would split a song up where Lizzie would sing the verse and then I would sing the melody of the chorus. And it just organically became the two of us, both as performers.
We never argued. Loads of people have asked us in interviews, like, do you ever fight over who sings the lead or like anything like that? We've never ever
Like, not once.
conflicted on anything
We'll
like
be
that.
like, oh yeah, you do that bit. Okay. That's how quickly the decision is made.
Like, okay.
And have you individually sung with anybody else to
Do you know-
understand the difference between, as you're saying, this French horn and trumpet twin, beautiful blend coming together versus that feeling of singing with someone else?
Yes. And it is
It's very
I
different.
think we had to sing with someone else to realise how easy and special it was to sing with each other,
Yeah.
because we've done duets as a pair where we've sung with a band called The Shires. They did a big festival in Hyde Park, and we did Everywhere by Fleetwood Mac.
Tune.
And we had to try and work out 4 parts for all of us to sing. And me and Lizzie sort of slotted immediately, and we were like, oh, we have to make ourselves in sync with them. And they were very used to singing with each other. So it was actually a real challenge to try and
really interesting, actually.
blend the 4 of us.
Yeah.
But then normally whenever we've sung, we did a song with a singer called Jack Savretti,
Yes.
who is
That really worked.
that worked so quickly.
It with Jack, it clicked. We covered Human live at one of his shows in Europe, and his voice is really husky and really and he the three of us.
Well, because I just sat underneath and you just sat above, and we just blended, whereas we had a much harder time. We have a song with James Blunt called Halfway,
Yep.
and we had a much harder time with that because he sings quite high
Quite
for a man,
high, yeah.
but it's actually very low for me. So
Okay.
we couldn't sort of work out where we sat in that. And I think it's like that sixth sense that you have with your sister, where you immediately know, like me and Lizzie will look at each other and Lizzie will like point up. And I'll be like, okay, that means she's about to take the higher harmony, so I'll sing the melody.
Okay.
And we can do that in real time, even on stage,
Wow.
and take it for granted when you're with someone else.
Yeah.
The question of if individually, if we've sung with other people, is we've got a brother who sings as well. He's a really good singer, and I've individually sang with him, and we still have that family thing that we know each other so well, but it's not the same.
So there was some research done on dyslexics and pitch recognition. And the research found that dyslexics are brilliant at pitch recognition and yet find rhythm and timing more challenging. I wonder what you think, Lizzie.
Oh my God, that is so true. That is really, really relatable, because there's been so many moments on stage, if it's been in sound check rehearsals, live, on stage, where I've just been in a completely different rhythm. And from the rest of the band, and Catherine has been looking at me saying, what the hell are you doing? Why did you come in then? There's a lyric in one of our songs in One More Goodbye that goes, I know this isn't good timing. And then I literally go out of time. I say the lyric, I sing the lyric, and I go out of time. It's like I'm answering what we're saying.
I think it's the case with any timing that
Sorry.
you have. If you think about it, you get it wrong, but if you feel it, you get it right.
Yes.
And I think that that's the big difference between pitch and timing. Is timing is like a cognitive thing, maybe.
Yeah, when you're recording to click.
Yeah, whereas
left brain.
music is and tuning is just a felt thing. You feel it, you sing it perfectly, and you always sing every note perfectly. But you have to use the other side of the brain to start getting the right timing, and that's probably where it's harder.
You do wonder how. Can you imagine a dyslexic person who plays the drums and sings backing vocals at the same time?
I wonder if there is any.
I wonder if
I don't think Phil Collins is dyslexic, basically.
Well, you don't know. Yeah, you just don't know. Because that is so multitasking.
That would be really hard.
That would be, you can't be dyslexic to do that, surely.
No.
So then, Catherine, how's your pitch recognition versus rhythm and timing?
Well, I definitely would say that I have better rhythm and timing, but my pitch recognition is definitely off sometimes because I'll be singing. And
More with the guitar than your voice.
We have in-ears, so our in-ear monitors. Basically, when you're on stage, you either have a monitor where you have the speaker coming back to you so you can hear what everyone else hears.
Yes.
But then when it gets slightly more sophisticated, you can have in-ear monitors where you have your very own monitor mix. And I will sometimes have a problem with mine and I'll feel like I'm singing way off.
We did a show at Glastonbury and we had one moment in the set where the sound there was something went off in the sound. And then Catherine and I were the band was sounded flat. But you and me were
in sync.
We're in sync. So the band were like, how are they two singing in sync with each other, but they're completely off key from what the band are doing? Because we couldn't hear. There's something going on.
I mean, I think the band
We
were
were
right and we were wrong.
We were wrong. The band obviously were right because they were all together.
But it looked like they were wrong.
Both stayed.
We stayed
the
in
same.
sync.
Yeah, because we listened to each other so
closely.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I find that it is fast. The rhythm
You're still
thing.
processing the rhythm and
Yeah,
the
I know.
timing
Yeah,
and
you're
the pitch recognition.
I am. It makes so much sense. Again, I feel so much better. I'm not crazy.
No, you're not
Not
crazy.
crazy.
It is so nice
You're
though
not crazy.
to have a name for it and then you go, I can see the relief in your face.
It is, because also loads of other people don't get that. Well, I didn't get it, but I've had moments where we're very close with our band. They're like our brothers, where I'll do that. And then Billy would be like,
Yeah, and you can't
No,
help
what-
it.
what- how-
You can't
what?
help it. And I probably do it all the time, and I'm really sorry. But you can't help but look at you like, what? And that probably makes you feel 100 times worse.
I know.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of people that gravitate towards session musician playing, they're mathematical. They're very mathematical in the way that
Okay.
music works. The music charts are mathematical. You can think in numbers because in Nashville they use the number system instead of the note system. So if the song is in G, then that is a 1, and then everything else is numbers.
Very
And-
confusing.
Okay.
They say if you're good at music, you're good at maths. I'm like, that is absolute
Rubbish.
bull crap.
But it
Sorry.
does mean that a lot of people
Rubbish.
that are very mathematical in the music sense gravitate towards being a session player. So you're
Yeah.
surrounded most of the time with session players, not other artists. You're not, and an artist is much more likely to be nuanced and probably dyslexic because of how they've gravitated towards creativity. Whereas a session player a lot of the time is very,
Methodical,
Yeah.
it sounds.
Yeah.
and you're mostly around them. So that probably is quite, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I can
No.
imagine it's quite difficult when everyone's looking at you going, you came in at the wrong time.
It's difficult but funny as well because it's like I'm obviously going nuts because I genuinely think I'm right
Yeah.
in my head. And we've done it in lots of songwriting sessions as well. I'm like, no, the song lends itself like this.
And you're
then
outnumbered.
completely always outnumbered. And that is so interesting.
Let's talk about country music.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will listen to anything, right? I don't
Okay.
care whether it's Gregorian chanting or it's doing Excel spreadsheets, listening to techno, or I will listen to anything. I mean, I listen to a lot of nursery rhymes
Same.
with the kids. Country music, though, is one that is an area probably I don't know a lot about. And I certainly don't know about it in a UK context. So, first question, what makes country music country?
Well, originally it would have probably been the types of instruments, the chord choices, and where it comes from. But that's become less of a thing. It's funny, if you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville,
I was
Amazing.
literally going to talk
they
about that.
say that it actually originates from the British Isles. So it probably would have come originally
Folk. It comes from folk music.
Okay.
And like,
yeah,
it comes from like the Irish and Welsh kind of
and the banjos.
bluegrass and folk music.
Okay.
Comes from literally there. You look
So
back at
Joni
history.
Mitchell is not a country singer.
No, she would be probably more
More
Singer-songwriter.
folky
Folky singer-songwriter. And so would James Taylor.
Yes.
They were under the singer-songwriter brand.
Okay.
When stories were told about crimes that happened, there would be a song that would tell a story about something that happened. It would be really dark and kind of
Old country
Scary.
is all about murders.
yeah, and like there would be like about a murder that happened
kidnaps
and a
or-
girl that
Okay.
went missing, and they would tell the story, and that story would become a song, and then those songs are still sung now, and they would have travelled over to America and then become bluegrass, and then the bluegrass songs became more country, and it was mainly people that would have lived in the Smoky Mountains like Dolly Parton that would tell stories in song. It's obviously developed very differently now, and you can get country pop, country alt, country rock, country,
Bro
and
country.
bro country was a very big thing a few years ago. It's now not as
What's
big a thing.
bro country?
Luke Bryan.
Florida Georgia.
And now it's becoming, see, since Chris Stapleton and Brandy Carlisle and Casey Musgraves and all of those big artists, they were around, they were getting big during that. There's a 7-year
cycle in
cycle
Nashville.
of like different genres of country that they
Okay.
say in Nashville that kind of is really popular for a time.
Okay.
And then there's some artists that will last the test of time. And those kinds of artists are Brandy Carlisle, Chris Stapleton, Casey Musgraves, because they're very classic, but they also very country Americana. That's country
Okay.
Americana.
Okay.
But it is
But
difficult to
again,
know because
I
you could very easily, and I think this has happened a lot, you could get a Taylor Swift song and put a banjo on it and play it on country radio. And a lot of country like purists would say that's not country music.
Okay.
But in England, probably people would say it's country because we haven't got the same depth of country in our veins, and we're a baby genre over here.
Yes.
Especially UK country. But essentially, when we were starting out, we just loved the harmonies, loved the storytelling element of country music. And that's what we gravitated to the most.
And so, as young women kind of decide on country, and how did that happen? What was the spark moment?
Catherine said earlier we harmonised at school, alto and soprano. I think our cousin from Canada brought over the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, as well as we watched Walk the Line and loves of Johnny Cash and June Carter. We grew up in a very rural, we grew up on a farm like background, so we very naturally gravitated towards that. At our sixth form college, because it was such a creative school, there was an opportunity to have songwriting lessons. We both were working with this guy called Matt Greaves, who is the songwriting teacher, and we wrote the song called Footnotes. And I started it with Matt, and then Catherine ended up joining. We finished that song together. And from that song onwards, we were like, it just naturally sounded country. And we're like, this could be something quite interesting. And it just went from there. And that was how we were only about 17 then. And it was just authentically, we didn't try to be country. We've never tried to be country.
Okay, interesting.
We've always just
That's what you're attracted to.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's the kind of
Just
music you want to make.
Yeah.
Rather than,
Yeah.
probably we've been in a day and age for the last sort of 20 years where music is manufactured.
Yes.
And there's a gap, and we fit the people.
Yeah.
And then we give them the music, and then we shape them and mold them, and out of the factory comes
a new
these
product.
people.
Yeah. And then tell people what they're going to like.
And so you don't hear those stories that you've just described are then rarer, which is why it sounds so unusual to me to hear this. It's why I asked you, like, how do you kind of fall into that?
There's so much, like, the music industry is so saturated. And I think someone told me that 600,000 songs get uploaded onto streaming platforms every week.
Oh, my
which,
word.
I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of fillers in that number. But I think for me, the older I've got, the more I've loved about country music, that I don't want to hear necessarily a song about that I might have listened to when I was 17, about what life was like at 17. I want to hear songs about, like, keeping a marriage together, or learning how to navigate through difficult grief, or like learning how to integrate childhood trauma, like things that are really, really real. And that's what the conversations we have in songwriting rooms.
It's like a therapy session, genuinely.
Yeah, and it's like the lyrics that we want to convey. We've got a song called Love Does that we wrote just before Lizzy got married and just after I got married, because we were like, hey, you're going into something that has a very high failure rate now, and it's really scary, but we're doing it anyway. And I want to I don't want to hear a song about the sort of airy fairy parts. I want to hear the songs that are like, no, we're going to have a hard time and we're going to stick it out.
And we come from a divorced family as well. Our parents got divorced, so we were both, and we were writing that with our friend Rebecca, who's also from a divorced family. We'd all just got married, and we're like,
let's write about that.
We're doing that. We've made that decision to actually do that.
And I want people that listen to our songs to hear those lyrics and be like, and relate to that side. And hopefully there's lots of dyslexic people out there that can hear the songs and go, oh, I relate to that. Or any sort of neurodivergence that can find a relatable lyric is so much more important to us as artists now than to be like, let's write about a teenage heartbreak, because we are not teenagers anymore.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. I was reading through loads of your lyrics this morning, and I was struck by the metaphors, which is why I wanted to ask about the kind of who's coming up with the analogies and the kind of the visual aspect of your songs or the lyrics. And then the second observation I had was they're very emotional songs. Like, in a really good way, you've filled them full of emotion, which I guess is what great storytelling and great music does.
You turn to music when you seek comfort after something difficult. And I think the amount of times something difficult's happened, or someone came up to us and said, oh, your album Cartwheels got me through my divorce, or I listened to Restless Minds while my husband was in surgery. It's like finding solace in music. And a lot of the time when we've seen people go through great tragedies, or it's like the only way we can find a way to integrate those feelings in our own psyche is to put it into music, and hopefully that can bring comfort to someone else. That's all the emotion is poured into our music.
No, it's great. And as you say, whether it's the actual writing session or the output, there's some incredible healing and therapy there.
Yeah. There's something about like sort of wrapping it up into a 4-minute song and then like having it as a PDF and an MP3 that's like really nice. It's like it sort of feels like I've placed a bit and put it away.
Yeah, it does. Like we did write, this is quite a deep topic, but we wrote a song called Safe, and this person messaged us on Instagram, and she said she was just about to face the guy that she'd been sexually abused with in court, and she was listening to that song on repeat.
Wow.
I was just like, that's really like moving that she was like, that song really helped her through that whole process.
It's so cool, isn't it? How you can write something personal.
Yeah.
And yet somebody else can find their own personal piece in that.
Yeah.
That's kind of nothing to do with your personal experience of the song.
Yeah.
I know.
That's so cool.
And it makes it like, I think that's probably why Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star in the world, because every single person can listen to it and go, it's about me. That song's about me.
She is the genius at that.
She is really good at, like, we have a lot of Taylor Swift, having 3 girls in our house. We've got a lot of Spice Girls going on at the moment. And J-Lo, Jenny from the Block.
Oh, yeah.
Vintage. It's like vintage now.
It's all coming back. Albie, our 12-year-old, it's all Spice Girls and Oasis. And
cool.
Yeah. It's funny how it all kind of comes back around. But I find it so cool that you have this scalable piece of media that can be listened to anywhere in the world by anyone in the world and have a million different individual meanings to people.
I think it's when it's so honest. If there's such raw honesty in a song, then there'll be someone else out there that has felt that. And I think that you have to be quite brave to be so honest in a song, because there's so many people out there that will think that they think something or feel something and they're alone. And then you hear a song and you go, oh my God, it's not just me. And we literally have a song called It's Not Just Me, because we were sat in a songwriting session talking about anxiety and feeling like you're sort of running on a treadmill and you can never get off, and it's really stressful, and everyone in that room is like, oh my God, I felt that. And suddenly you feel it's like an antidote when someone goes, oh, me too. It's like that sort of huge antidote of, oh, it's not just me. And I think that you can do that in song.
Because sometimes we'll write a song about one specific thing that we've been talking about. The song Hold Space that we were talking about earlier, where I feel like I've been that character that whole day of like my mind is going down different rabbit holes and like everything feels so overwhelming, and
it's almost like
an answer to the verse. I needed someone to tell me in those days, like, can like you be the whole space.
Chorus to be the chorus
to be the answer to the verses,
song, to be the answer to the verses. Yeah,
exactly.
Can you sing me a bit of that song?
Which is a poet put us on.
Do you know,
the spot.
it's funny, this is actually where Lizzie's quite comfortable being put on the spot, I would say, because you're very much comfortable in this. This is your craft. This
Although
is what you,
now
this is what you know.
because we were talking about dyslexia,
you're going to forget the lyrics. What part of the song do you think would be?
I don't know. I think the concept of holding space, we do when people share problems. I think the natural tendency as people and humans is we want to help, right?
Yeah,
we
you
want
want
to
to
jump
fix
in
it,
and we want to fix it, and we want to get tissues because we don't want you to cry. We want you to stop crying. How quickly can I make you feel happy?
Yeah, because your discomfort is uncomfortable to me.
Exactly.
Really. Yeah.
Whereas holding space and holding the tension of sitting, feeling uncomfortable, that somebody else is in pain, is a skill that I constantly try and practice because I want to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And actually it feels harsh to keep someone in pain. The song also touches on indecision. And we talked about that at the beginning in terms of your decisiveness, Lizzie, or maybe lack thereof. Tell me about indecision and holding space.
It's a dyslexic thing of like everything's a bigger picture, like overthinking everything. And I do that within my own like personal relationships. I like every ex or relationship I've been in, I've always like overthought is it, is this right or is that, and just doubts and all that kind of stuff. And so the lyric in that, I think, describes that mentality really well, because you're locked into your indecision and you genuinely need someone else with a different perspective to simplify it.
It's unlike our mum. She has ADHD and she struggles big time with decision paralysis. And I notice her spiral the minute she has to make any kind of decision. And my instinct is to be like, right, well, we just have to pick one. Instead of like, actually, wait, let's just let you sit in this indecision.
Oh my God,
let's just let you sit in this indecisiveness. Let's let you sit with this, because it's only painful because you're putting the pressure on making the decision.
Yeah.
When she has a big decision to make, oh my gosh,
yes,
it is really intense to be around.
Completely paralyzing for her. And
because, and you're just wanting to like put your hands on her shoulders and sit her down and just be like, this isn't life and death right now.
Yeah.
Like,
and I literally think that's the lyric that I think in that song, if we can find a way of getting into that part of the song.
Is this the second verse?
You pick a note.
Your life's going down like a mudslide, and you're on the ground with your hands tied, feeling so done, and it's all wrong. You're locked into your indecision. You feel like you missed the audition for your own life, and it's not right. You're viewing from the valley and it's crowding your style. Everybody shouting out advice. You've been down every alley in denial. All that I can do is empathize. So I'm just gonna hold space. I know that I can't change it or go and make it okay. So I'm just gonna hold space. I'm just gonna hold space. I know that I can't change it or go and make it okay. So I'm just gonna hold space. I'm just gonna hold space. And done.
What a f***ing treat.
Did you not feel so awkward? I hate when people sing in front of
Do you
me.
know
I
what?
want to like
I
melt.
said to Bella, ooh, I'm just preparing myself for feeling so uncomfortable while I'm being like there's
Serenade.
this singing and it's just us three in this room. And actually listening to you, I didn't feel uncomfortable at all, because A, you weren't singing to me.
Yeah, we were singing to each
I was
other.
like,
But if we were
singing
like
to each
locked
other.
eyes, that would have been very uncomfortable.
and B, because you were singing to each other, I could watch you. And so, it didn't feel uncomfortable because I could just be in the moment.
Oh,
that's
thank
good.
you.
Well, thank you.
So you start your tour really soon. What's coming up? Tell us about it. What's next?
So this tour is a stripped back tour with just the three of us on stage. It's kind of like a living room
Three of us being
experience.
me and Lizzy and a guitar.
Every tour and every show, we always want to add something different and challenge ourselves a little bit more. I think we're going to try and bring, play on our harmonies a little bit more, do a few more a cappella moments within the show, play with a loop pedal. We'll make it very different.
Because we were touring until very recently with a full band, and we were playing sort of bigger venues. And our favourite point in the set was always when it was just the two of us sat there. And so we thought, let's go back on tour with that setup. Okay. Let's make it intimate. Let's just
storytelling
chat about the songwriting process, chat about the songs, have some really authentic banter where there's no restrictions, no track, no like, oh, we got to get on with the next song. And we did it last year and we loved it. So we wanted to do it again. But then it's going to be a different show, but the same vibe.
Okay, nice. And it's around the UK.
It's around the UK.
Where can people get tickets?
Our website has tickets, wardthomasmusic.com.
And all our socials have the link to our website.
And do you like being on tour?
Yeah, I used to hate it. I'm such a home bird and I used to want to be at home, and I will be leaving my toddler behind. But it's actually a lot of fun now because we have a really lovely setup. We have an amazing team of people that we love, that are like our family, and we love the tour, the set that we're doing now. It feels really authentic to us and where we're at. And
also, it's probably the only part of what we do that gives a routine.
Yeah.
Like everything else, there's no routine. And for someone like in my brain, I actually do need
Thrive
a
off- yeah.
routine
Do
because
you like routine?
I prefer a routine because
Okay.
it just settles my brain down.
Yeah.
Because
You know where you're going to be.
I know where I'm going to be. I don't overthink. I really enjoy that part of it. And I like performing. And so I just think it settles me a little bit.
Yeah.
Catherine, do you like routine?
Yeah, but I can structure it myself. Like I can create a routine for myself.
Okay.
If I have an open week, I can fill it very easily. Whereas Lizzy, I think, would see that as very daunting, and you'd want someone to give you a time and a place
Catherine
to be.
is you'll pick up hobbies like so many. She's a master of many, jack of all trades.
Okay,
That's
let's talk a little
Master
bit
of
about
many,
that.
many different things.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I do have I get special obsessions, and I like
Okay.
to become really good at something,
She's
and then I move on.
undiagnosed, but a lot of us think she might have ADHD.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
the only reason that I might think that there might be some truth in it is that we have a lot of neurodivergence in our family.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Our mum is diagnosed ADHD, and she got diagnosed very late in life,
She
only
was-
very, very recently. And it's actually been such a blessing for her because we're so much more patient with her now. I can understand her so much better. And I definitely have tendencies to become obsessed with projects. I love to master something. And then
you've
once
got a lot
I've
of
mastered
likenesses
it,
to our mum. That's why.
Okay.
That's what I'd say. You've got a
Okay.
lot of those
but I
traits that our mum
I tend
is.
to master something and then move on. I sort of get really into something and then I'm over it. Like I got into knitting.
Really
I got
good at
really good
knitting.
at it. I could do anything and then I've sort of moved on. And now I'm really into my baking.
And
Yes.
she does like
I bake a
wedding
lot of
cakes.
cakes.
Yes.
Like I get
Three tears.
so excited by it. I'll lie in bed thinking about it. I'll be so excited about baking a cake. I don't know. I have very little sort of shame around it. I very much see it as something that's meant that I've been able to master stuff and get really interested in things.
Well, we had Tess and Blumenthal on here talking about why ADHD and cooking and the kitchen make such great friends.
Okay.
And, you know, he wasn't kind of going, the research suggests or there's been a study. But he was just saying with actually having a high interest topic that you can obsess over that has loads of variety, actually. It's not factory, make the same thing again and again and
you
again.
can literally do it a million
You
different
can
ways.
do it a million different ways. There's risk. There's things that you can hurt yourself with and burn yourself. There's an element of unpredictability there. It's quite dopamine seeking because
there's a
ultimately
finished product
there's
as well.
a finished product and you can eat it and you can enjoy it and taste
and watch
it.
other people enjoy it, which I love.
It's very sensory
Yeah.
when you think about a kitchen.
Yeah.
So how long has the baking thing been going?
Well, I think I've always loved it from a very young age, but then
Okay.
I sort of started to get good at it and then bake people's birthday cakes and
Now it's
they
become a
had to be
hindrance.
special and they had to, I know.
Every year, you need to
I feel
bake.
like I've let someone down if I haven't made them a cake now. But it's been maybe in the last 5 years, it's become more of something that I really want to perfect. And if it's not perfect, then I get very annoyed by it.
And so your mum was diagnosed about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
I think you said something incredibly poignant and interesting in that your mum's diagnosis has helped the way you are with your mum.
Yeah.
And I think quite often, and I hear this from people, I don't need a label. I don't need to go and get a diagnosis. And we think about it only from ourselves' point of view.
Yeah.
But actually the help and understanding it can give the people around us where, you know, look, I was the last person to know that I'm autistic. Everybody else, no one was surprised.
Yeah.
I had no idea. No one was surprised. And so it gives other people around me some validation of kind of like, yep, okay, great, we understand it. Now he understands it. That's good.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you are really relieved that your mum got that for both your relationship with her.
Relationship understanding. It's all about understanding, isn't it? It's like, and you have more patience. And also you can relate to certain elements of the way that, especially with your own parents and your own way you come from.
But interesting that you see a lot of Catherine in your mother.
Yes, a lot of those ADHD characteristics that
I think it's also helpful because we speak
In you.
every day, all the time. We're very close with our mum, and she has big time, as we said, decision paralysis. And it was the sort of joke that she was mocked for loads of her life. She would get birthday cards that was like, oh, I used to be indecisive, but now I can't make up my mind.
Yes.
And all that stuff. Like she would have like fridge magnets with that quote on it because she was so known for it. Now you can go, oh, I see it happening. I can see it happening in her head. She's in the process of trying to find a house. And she'll look around a house and she'll love it. And then she'll find a million reasons why she hates it.
She'll put an offer down and then she'll withdraw that offer.
Oh my goodness, the estate agents in our town, she can't go near them.
She can't go near any of them.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm one of the few people that can sort of sit with her.
You're very patient with her.
And hear her talk about it. And now I'm currently in the newborn trenches, luckily, so I'm up at night in the feeding stages, and she's up at night stressed about something, and she can message me.
You're like that for me as well. She's the agony aunt in our family, whereas I'm less patient with my mum with her, which is weird. I should be more patient, shouldn't I? But like some of the chaoticness of which comes with the decision making.
But I think
we started this conversation with your decision making, Lizzie, about being put on the spot and having to choose three words to say about Catherine's brain. So this is very neatly segues into your challenges with making decisions.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally, I feel like sometimes you get the most impatient with someone's,
with the mirror,
with the stuff that you know about yourself. Exactly.
Well, even this morning, Lizzie messaged me and said, what item do I bring? I'm really stressing about an item. And I came up with a couple of ideas and I said, because this could mean this and this and this. And Lizzie was suddenly like, what does that mean? I'm like that. I'm not like that. I don't want you to think I'm like that. And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe you're not like that. I don't know. I'm
just trying to help you.
I just picked an item and didn't think too much about it. And you've gone down like 8 different rabbit holes about one thing that I didn't think about at all.
This is literally my brain. I overthink something.
So if I asked your mother to do the same,
she'd probably just do
what
the
would
exact
her
same.
reaction thought process be?
She'd
bring like 6 different things.
And it's also quite rebellious, right? The undertone to that
of like
is
not bringing anything.
I'm not going to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to meet the brief. So I'm going to be really rude to Ben.
So our mum would bring 6
Lizzie,
different items.
you have not brought an item.
No, I couldn't make it a decision. I couldn't figure it out.
You couldn't make the call.
No.
If we'd have organised this 4 months ago,
yeah,
do you think that would have been different?
I still probably would have changed my mind. I probably would have found a different meaning.
Yeah.
Another meaning.
Or we'd have had a different item a week, but then ended up with nothing.
See, it's so exactly.
Yeah.
And so you not bringing an item is actually perfect.
Yeah, because I'm like,
is actually genius and brilliant. And so thank you for not bringing an item, Lizzie, because it is perfectly describes your brain. Catherine, what item did you bring that represents your brain?
I brought my nappy bag, mainly obviously because I had to, because I have a newborn in the control room, but also because it's a really organised bag with a lot of different compartments. And on some days, everything is in exactly the right place and I can reach for everything. And other days, it's all stuffed in the back, which I think describes my brain, because you get days where you feel really together and you get days where you feel really scatty. Exactly, like you said earlier. Yeah.
Your head is so screwed on, but you're also quite scatty.
Yeah, well, I think it's an organised chaos. Like, it does seem very organised. You'd assume I'd be very disorganised, but I'm actually very organised.
No, it's good.
Basically.
And my experience of nappy bags is for our third daughter, for Moss, we didn't have anything organised. It was just like...
Well, you do have 2 more to think about by that point.
Yeah, but it was just like, whatever, tote bag, what do we actually need in there?
Yeah.
Some wipes, some nappies, a dummy, a change of clothes. Everything else, forget about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't miss... Yeah.
You don't miss the nappy bag phase.
I don't miss the nappy... No, I don't miss the nappy bag phase of having... Like, have we got... you're planning for a fucking expedition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just trying to get out the door. Yeah, that kind of nappy bag stuff takes me back, and I am very glad that we are out of the nappy bag stage
Fair
now.
enough, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I've really loved talking to you both, and amazing to hear you both sing literally live here right now. And I'm excited for your tour. And I'm excited that I'm always excited about meeting people that don't follow the herd, and country music doesn't follow the herd.
No, it's not
No.
cool.
No, but I like people who challenge things and find their own way. And I think that's part and parcel of neurodivergence
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm attracted to people like that.
Yeah.
It's like you're like a lot of our friends like that, like, you know.
Non-conventional route.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming and kind of lending your brains to this.
Thank you for having us.